Hey, you're back at the Faculty Factory podcast, and I'm Kim Skorupski, UTMB, Galveston, Texas, looking at a friend and colleagues, Dr. Dan Shapiro. Morning, Dan.
Good morning, Kim.
If you don't know Dr. Shapiro, you need to know him. This guy is like uber cool. He's been on the podcast before. We'll link to his episodes. But Dan got his PhD in clinical psychology at the University of Florida, went on to Harvard Medical School, where he got an internship, an endowed postdoctoral fellowship. Fast forward for 15 plus years, almost 20, he was at Penn State, faculty member there, vice dean. He is such a creative guy, frequent contributor to thought leadership in the physician burnout space. He wrote this amazing book, Delivering Dr. Amelia, required reading at some colleges, medical schools, two other books, also for Random House, New York Times, Proceedings of the National Academy of Science, New England Journal of Medicine, JAMA, Academic Medicine, NPR's All Things Considered, and he consults on things like cool things like Grey's Anatomy, Private Practice, How to Get Away with Murder, and On Camera for Discovery, National Geographic, and FYI channels. He does so many things. And he is now currently a senior partner in performance transformation and leads the Chartis Center for Burnout Solutions, where he and his team assist leaders of multi-hospital systems with efforts to reduce burnout and the turnover of high-value physicians, nurses, advanced practice providers, and other staff, and so much more. I mean, Dan, I really admire your career. It's been long and rich and just creative and innovative, and you are definitely a role model for not accepting the status quo and thinking outside of the box. And when I read an email that you had given a talk for ELAM, the Executive Leadership and Academic Medicine Program, with friends of the podcast, Nancy Spector, Erica Brown et al., with a really cool title, I knew I had to get you on the podcast. Just briefly talk to us about this title. Start with the title, Dan. Tell us a little bit about what you shared with ELAM.
So I've been speaking at ELAM for about 8 years on interviewing for big jobs. And what I noticed, having watched hundreds of people interview for these really big jobs, but then I've been doing a lot of 360s, and I did them as a vice dean. So I was a chair first, and then I got promoted or demoted, depending on your perspective, to being a vice dean. And as you know, being a vice dean for faculty administrative affairs in medical school is a bit like being a middle school vice principal. With all the associated glory. uh, but along the way, having done that job and instituting a program where we did 360s of chairs, and then I started doing them when I left that job for Chartis. So now I've seen hundreds, literally hundreds of 360s of chairs, institute directors, deanlets, deans. You start noticing patterns. And then because I was a vice dean, I got to watch what happened to these folks downstream. And I started seeing obvious patterns in some things that I hadn't seen talked about before. Like everyone talks about a chair's vision or an institute director's vision, and that's what they interview them about. But it struck me that there were a lot of other behaviors that really matter in these roles that I hadn't seen anyone talking about. So I put together a talk called Chutes and Ladders. It's being a great leader, Chutes and Ladders, that are about the little behaviors, the important behaviors we exhibit in these roles that either lead to flourishing or, in some cases, getting washed out of a role. And unfortunately, as a vice dean, I had to play a role in that sometimes.
That's right. I like that, flourishing or floundering. The little behaviors. Can you tell us a little bit about the little behaviors?
Sure. So I put these into sort of three categories. Well, let's say four. There are the big things that can get you washed out of an institution. So that's like fraud, bullying, not doing your job, the things that are really obvious and big. So I wasn't talking about those so much. I do mention them in the talk, but only to say I'm not going to focus on these. Then there's sort of basics, foundational behaviors, mid-level, and what I call advanced skills. And the basics are things like, and these will get you removed from a job if you do enough of them, like being available or not being available. Like, I don't remember anyone interviewing to be a chair, having watched hundreds of these where people said, "Are you around? Like, is it
Oh my
possible to find you? Like, are you off traveling away?" Or we had a chair who basically set up barriers between himself and the faculty. Like, you've got to go through this person, that person, and this person before you get to talk to me. And I understand if like it's important that you talk to your division chief about an issue you're facing first, but the chair should be available to the faculty, for example. Here's another one. This one's big. Having a sole source of truth for promises. A single source of truth that other carbon-based life forms can find for things you have promised a faculty member, a division chief, someone in the department. And some people are like, "Hey, we know each other. It's great. You don't need to worry. I got your back. You got my back. We don't need to write these things down." And unfortunately, when that person leaves, that leaves a poor soul like you or me, trying to find an email or some evidence that this faculty member who's pounding on our desk demanding that they get the thing that was promised before that person left, like it's just an impossible situation. So, single source of truth. And I have been shocked having, doing these well-being evaluations around the country at how many places don't have a sole source of truth for a whole variety of things. Like even who's on the faculty.
Oy.
Like just the basics. It's fundamental, foundational. Who's in your faculty? Who's not in your faculty? What have you promised them? Yeah, etc. Things like that. So those are foundational. And there's a bunch of others. Mid-level skill would be understanding and communicating your department's financial landscape. It's not an easy thing to do. Complicated. In some places, it's so obfuscated that you would need a PhD in accounting to figure it out. All the sources of funds, where they're coming. When I was a chair, in the fall and in winter, we would look desperately in trouble. We were deeply in the red. And then we always seemed to have a spring miracle. But for the life of me, I could not account for why the data went the way it did. And we poured over these, P&L statements, with great vigor. And so in some places, it's not easy to do. I get that because of the systems. But the faculty deserve to know where things stand and where the winds are blowing, to use overtrod metaphors once too many times. And your ability to do that matters. So that, that's like a mid-level skill. Another mid-level skill is soliciting faculty challenges and addressing them. What are the things getting in the faculty's way across missions and serving as an emissary, not just waiting for the loudest, angriest person to grace our door, but actually going out, shadowing our faculty, watching them with the residents, watching them deal with the clinical stuff, and trying to be an ambassador to diplomatically get them the things they need to make their lives better. So that's a mid-level skill. And there's a lot of others. And then an advanced skill might be being able to say no to someone so that they still feel valued. Being able to say no to a faculty member or a chair or someone else but doing it in such a way that they leave feeling like they matter. This isn't rote, it's not routine. It's easy to say no, and a lot of people say no, and sometimes it's easier to say no than it is to say yes. And so a lot of leaders and administrators use it. But sometimes we have to. And being able to do it in such a way that people still feel useful is important for a couple of reasons. One is when a faculty member asks for something, it's a seminal moment in their career. It's a big deal. It's a big moment for them often. And when we're saying no, those can be times people reevaluate whether they want to be in our institution. Like they're big. Second, your willingness to say no makes you more willing to solicit what people want. I believe in every annual review, faculty should be asked, what do you want to be doing more of? I can't guarantee I can do it for you, but I want to know what makes you tick. What do you enjoy? And we've seen data. Tate Chenefeld put out a really nice paper. This was more than a decade ago, that showed when faculty members are engaged in what they like the most, at least 20% of the time, they flourish. So they're willing to grind through 80%. These are grinders. Our faculty are hard workers. They delay gratification. But if you give them at least a taste of the thing they like the most, they can do really well. Well, the only way to know that they're in that position is by asking. So I think not only should all faculty have annual reviews, and not perfunctory, but real detailed, careful annual reviews. And I think that because we're in sort of a lot of faculty are in existentialist crises, right? They work and work and work. No one seems to notice. They go the extra mile. No one notices. No one seems to care. And so an annual review is a way of guaranteeing that someone has sat down and taken a look at your entire portfolio of contribution and done something. But part of that annual review should be someone asking you, what do you want to be doing more of? And if you're too afraid you don't know how to say no, maybe you don't have the courage to ask that important question. But that's an example of an advance.
Thanks for your deep thinking about this. It's complex, it's elegant, and yet it's simple. And I like the simplicity in going back to the basics in terms of little behaviors, these moments. And what I've heard you saying from the foundational, mid-level, and advanced aspects is a thread that I pull through all those is you started with availability, that you have to be physically, mentally, emotionally available to then watch your faculty at the mid-level, to actually, shadow them, you pointed to. And then you talked about having those authentic conversation, and that also means availability. So to me, the availability in being there and showing up is a thread that of a leader that we have to do that, and showing up and giving a hoot is key. And even as you pointed out, if the budgets are seemingly nonsensical and we have to say no because we have to, the being present would help smooth all that roughness of saying a no if we could just communicate and help the faculty understand why and not now, or how else, or negotiate that. So that, to me, the availability is so basic. And yet we tend to make things complicated in theories and frameworks and matrices and all good stuff. And just being a human being and showing up.
There are, I'd say, 8 other foundational pieces that I think chairs need to be able to do. And it's everything from, not picking up the first flag you're given and running it up the hill. Like, you'll have the job about 2 minutes before a faculty member comes in and goes, "Can you believe you're doing blah, 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 blah?" And if you don't stop, breathe, do your homework first, you're likely to advocate for something you may not actually believe in when you have the whole story.
Mhm.
Managing a calendar, responding to email, like there's a bunch of basics. But it is amazing how many people, just by slipping on one of those things in a consistent way, doom their job without realizing it. You can have great vision, but if you don't respond to your email in a timely fashion and make decisions, doesn't really matter. There's a good chance you'll wash out of the role.
So much cool stuff. Dan, if people want to work with you, learn more from you, get into all these other juicy 8, 10 more little behaviors, kind of the things, how can they get in touch with you, or how might that happen with you?
Email is the easiest. It's dshapiro, DSHAPIRO @chartis.com. Easy to find. And follow me on LinkedIn and I will follow you back. I like following people's careers and seeing what they're up to and struggling with. And that's really fun. So follow me, I'll follow you back, and we can stay in touch.
Dr. Shapiro, thank you so much. This is great. Keep doing the great work. Keep that brain healthy, because there's so much in there. Always has been. I know there's so much more. We got to have it. And you want to get this information out there, and everybody share the wealth, because this guy knows what he's doing.
Really appreciate it, Kim. Great to see you again.
Thanks for tuning in to the Faculty Factory podcast. We are a faculty development community sharing tools to build academic leaders in healthcare. Maybe you want to be interviewed on the podcast? Please visit facultyfactory.org/contact and send me a message there. The Faculty Factory podcast and website is sponsored by the Office of Faculty Affairs at the University of Texas Medical Branch in Galveston, Texas.